and you are listening to Watchman on the Pod. All right, we are going to go ahead and begin this new book because I just really want to. It is called The Believer's Victory Over Satan's Devices by William L. Parsons. First published in 1864, revised in 2024. Editor's note. During a recent visit, a dear brother shared how this book had helped him during a time of spiritual struggle. Although the book and its author are not widely known, it contains significant truths and many pastoral sketches that, like those of Ichabod Spencer, can be very helpful. As with many books we choose to republish, there are areas where we do not fully agree with the author and wish some points were expressed more clearly. Nevertheless, I believe this work will be a valuable resource for those battling the enemy's schemes, an enemy who looks for opportune times to strike. Luke chapter 4, verse 13. Whoops, let me get that. Please note that we have revised this book to enhance its readability. May God use it to bless your soul and dispel any thoughts from the enemy that are raised against the knowledge of God. Scroll Reader 2024. Preface. Understanding the forces that resist one's progress in any right direction is an essential condition of success. Knowing our enemy, how, when, where, and with what weapons he will attack us, greatly increases our chance of victory. This principle applies fully to spiritual matters. In the Christian warfare, we see relentless and, oh, I'm sorry, it's, people are telling me they don't like the dark screen, so there you go. Okay. This principle applies fully to spiritual matters. In the Christian warfare, we face relentless and cunning foes. If we do not wish to beat the air and be shamefully driven from the field, we must know our enemy's tactics and defenses and how to effectively use the weapons that are mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds. A successful reconnaissance of the foe is half the battle. If this volume has any merit, it lies in an attempt to bring the opposing forces, those working to destroy and those working to save the soul, into an open field face to face. It exposes the enemy at his work of destruction so that he can be seen and understood, allowing the powers of the gospel to be intelligently and effectively brought to bear against Satan, ensuring that those ensnared by darkness are ultimately freed. The work aims to serve as a handbook for all who wish to fight the good fight of faith, regardless of whether they have already embarked on this duty or are in the infancy or childhood of their spiritual life, or have made the highest attainments known among the saints. It seeks to meet the needs of people of all denominations or none who hope to reach heaven through the redemption of Christ. It aims to make the way clear from Egypt to the promised land and to show how to enter the land and gather its precious fruits. The concepts it presents are as essential to be known and well understood by both Christians and those who wish to become Christians as the fundamental rules of the chapter on sanctification aims to provide a more complete and satisfactory view than what is typically gained from writers who have presented only specific phases of that doctrine. The author hopes that he has presented it from a standpoint from which all Christians can agree and be inspired to embrace the fullness of the blessing of the gospel of Christ. The chapter's final sketches are included some of the more essential and difficult points and to help fix them in the reader's memory. The work does not include scholarly discussions about the existence or nature of Satan. Its objective is entirely practical, and its teachings are important to those who deny as well as those who admit his personal existence. The author has followed the simple method of the Bible and has felt authorized wherever he has found lies during their fatal work to attribute their fatherhood to Satan, continuing through all the catalog of abominations. Sorry, it keeps going out as a mere literary performance. The writer's goal has been to communicate simply a type of instruction that his ministry, largely spent in religious revivals, has shown him is greatly needed in the churches. The author must be most happy for each reader to regard the work as affectionately dedicated to themselves and to read it with the interest awakened by a conscious personal friendship between author and reader. Chapter 1. The case stated in its application to believers and non believers. Prove all things, hold fast that which is good. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 21. Imagine, well, let me turn this off here. There we go. Imagine if the many trains departing daily from our major central railroads suddenly derailed shortly after leaving the station, causing significant loss of property and life. If they struggled to climb moderate inclines, moved erratically, sometimes violently, and often seemed to veer off the rails and onto the road, failing to follow the engineer's commands, the causes of such malfunctions would be urgently investigated and corrected. Similarly, many who are hopefully converted to Christ often veer off course shortly after beginning their journey to their heavenly destination. They falter on the uphill duties of life, move irregularly, and fail to follow the guidance of the divine engineer. This is a great sorrow for the ministry and the church, and a stumbling block for the world, as failing in their spiritual race. Christ proclaims liberty, and yet many of his people are slaves to the world and their lusts. The gospel promises abundant blessings, yet we often miss the rivers of honey and butter mentioned in Job 20:17, and drink from the temporary streams that dry up. Chapter 6 in Job 15 through 18. We lack the tongue of fire, the baptism of the Spirit, and the fullness of the blessing of the gospel of Christ. Worse still, the church often feels paralyzed by the belief that this state of bondage and spiritual weakness is incurable, leading to an unsatisfactory and confusing spiritual experiences. This issue also affects those who have not yet been saved. They recognize their sin and the need for redemption to avoid being lost. The only path to heaven is the highway of holiness, Isaiah 35, 8 through 10, which the Lord has prepared, Isaiah 62:10. However, they see the failures and inconsistencies of Christians and reject the only means of salvation through Christ's atonement. They refuse to commit the errors they perceive in believers and seek to reach heaven without following the prescribed path. Many professed Christians are in such bondage that they cannot serve Christ with the same freedom and efficiency they display in everyday life. They are like prisoners of war, while the unconverted view experimental Christianity as a mysterious and incomprehensible subject, dismissing its validity. This situation should not exist. Satan plays a subtle and powerful role in creating it. Many recognize this but do not understand how he accomplishes his goals. They feel hopeless about escaping his influence, leading to a mental surrender to the adversary. To many, even in the churches, Satan is seen as a myth, leading them into captivity with little resistance. We believe that this great enemy of God and man can be we believe that this great enemy of God and man can be successfully exposed, allowing people to escape his destructive schemes. This is the work we shall attempt in the following chapters. While others may focus on Satan's war against God's throne and his efforts to corrupt human governments and institutions, we aim only to reveal the harmful ways he seeks to destroy the individual soul. Chapter 2: Personal Existence of Satan, Biblical View, and Answers to Objections. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent, called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. Revelation chapter 12, verse 9. The Bible does not provide a detailed account of Satan's origins. However, Peter's testimony, 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 4, are described as roaming the earth, deceiving and destroying souls. Their leader, known by various names in the Bible, signifies his personal existence. He is also called Satan, meaning enemy or adversary, and the devil, from a Greek word meaning to culminate, or from words implying without light, making his name nearly synonymous with Prince of Darkness. He is also known as the father of lies, indicating his role in all falsehoods, a murderer, tempter, Beelzebub, the accuser of the brethren, the god and prince of this world, Lucifer, serpent, tormentor, roaring lion, Abaddon in Hebrew and Apollyon in Greek, meaning destroyer. These names illustrate the various aspects of the being we discuss. Satan stands out in the Bible as a personal being with a consciousness, emotions, and will, similar to Paul or Christ. Archbishop Whately's attempts to discredit the personal existence of Satan were no more successful than if he were trying to argue against Napoleon's existence. The Bible consistently treats Satan as a commanding, ruling, and powerful spirit. Jesus was accused of casting out demons by Beelzebub, the chief of the devils. Luke chapter 11, verse 15. The Bible acknowledges Satan's supremacy among fallen spirits, often referring to the devil and his angels. Satan is depicted as the God, small g, of this world, exercising sovereign rule to the extent of his power. Jesus recognized Satan's leadership and the unity of his subjects when he said, "If Satan is divided against himself, how shall his kingdom stand?" It is unnecessary to generalize Satan's existence by considering him merely a name for bad spirits in general. A vast society of evil spirits requires a leader, a chief around whom they can organize and express their combined power of evil. There can be organized unity in hell just as there is in heaven. Why should men hesitate to admit the existence of a personal devil? The universe is vast with varied and numerous populations. Bad men exist, so why not bad spirits? And if they exist, why can't they exert their malign influence in this world? The main objection to Satan's personal existence is the difficulty in understanding how a finite being can be everywhere, tempting everyone simultaneously. Several reasonable suppositions might help to address this concern. Evil spirits might be numerous enough to assign an attendant or even a legion to each person. Supernatural abilities could show how spiritual beings might read and influence people's thoughts from a distance. We do not fully understand the extent of the influence of disembodied spirits. Satan's power of locomotion might account for his seeming omnipresence. Our vast sun, with its worlds moving through space at 57 miles per second. If Satan travels similarly, he could circle the globe in under 8 minutes. Light travels at 200,000 miles per second. If Satan can move on sunbeams, he could circle the earth multiple times in a second. Shakespeare's imagination fell short when he allowed one of his ethereal spirits 40 minutes to circle the earth. Electricity moves faster than light, and if there is a spiritual equivalent of our telegraph, Satan could send his messages rapidly from his palace in Pandemonium. Furthermore, if in the spiritual realm Wishes act as wings. Objections to Satan's existence and influence based on time and space dissolve. Satan might not need to be constantly present with souls to achieve his purposes. He might plant deceit in a person's mind early in life, letting it bear bitter fruit over time. Lies can spread contagiously from mind to mind like flames in a wildfire, allowing delusions to persist through family and societal relations across generations with minimal interference. If someone claims no other devil than man's wicked heart, how do we account for Christ's temptations? Did he have a wicked heart to be his tempter? It is impossible to reconcile the Bible with the denial of Satan's personality. Denying it offers no benefit. Believing a lie has the same ruinous effect whether it originates from Satan or ourselves. If Satan were merely an impersonation of human wickedness, each person being their own Beelzebub and tormentor, it wouldn't help. It would be no easier to exorcise the self devil than to escape a separate personal tempter. Conversely, knowing Satan exists and seeks our ruin helps guard against him. Knowing his lies, unless we prefer falsehood over truth, weakens their power over us. Satan would likely prefer us to ignore his personality and attribute his actions to ourselves. By doing so, he can operate unnoticed, subtly influence our thoughts and actions without drawing attention to his own malevolent presence. Malevolent, malevolent presence. I'm sorry. This allows his lies to spread and take root in our minds, unhindered by his notorious reputation. When we fail to recognize his involvement, his deception becomes more effective, leading us astray without us even realizing the true source of our confusion and wrongdoing. This hidden influence is precisely what makes his tactics so dangerous and insidious. Chapter 3: Character of Satan. He was When he lies, he speaks his native language because he is a liar and the father of lies. John chapter 8, verse 44. Satan is a moral being possessing character, whether good or bad. He is not neutral. His names alone indicate his complete wickedness. As the father of lies and the enemy of God and man, there is no virtue in him. He is entirely devoid of redeeming qualities. While he may retain a semblance of dignity due to his great intellect, as Milton noted by his bad eminence, the scriptures never portray him as having any natural goodness, generosity, candor, forbearance, or humanity. Satan has dedicated himself to opposing God's will, against which he has rebelled, using all his powers to pursue his dark purpose. He aims to subvert men from their allegiance to God and lead them captive at his will. He contends for moral supremacy over humanity. God demands that all moral agents prioritize the well being of all, which is right and holy, resulting in heaven. In contrast, Satan teaches that each individual should seek their own well being above all else, which is wrong and leads to hell. Satan's wickedness is evident in the fact that the incarnation's primary purpose was to destroy the works of the devil. 1 John chapter 3 verse 8. And free humanity from his bondage. Hebrews chapter 2 verse 14. The apostolic commission aimed to turn men from Satan unto God that they might receive forgiveness of sins. Acts chapter 26 verse 18. Saints are urged to put on the full armor of God to resist the devil's schemes. Ephesians chapter 6, 11 through 20. The Bible depicts Satan as involved in all forms of evil throughout all generations. He seduced Eve into eating the forbidden fruit, tempted Cain to kill his brother, and thus became a murderer from the beginning. He persecuted Job in the earliest age, influenced David to number the people, led Judas to betray Christ, and prompted Ananias to lie to the Holy Ghost. He even tried to thwart the Son of God himself. Satan's character is further revealed by his unscrupulous methods. He substitutes light for darkness and darkness for light, confusing fundamental moral principles. He manipulates infinite truth, incites passions, and orchestrates the betrayal, mockery, scourging, and crucifixion of Christ. He attacks infants, placing lies on their tongues to lead them astray from birth. His delight is to play the wolf among the lambs. The supreme selfishness he promotes results in all crime, war, disorder, woe, and ruin, yet he continues his course with malice and without remorse. Satan's wickedness is entirely his own, and as great as he can make it. However, his sin is tempting does not lessen the guilt of men who yield to his wicked solicitations. Our adversary cannot lead us astray without our consent. Chapter 4. The battlefield surveyed, human mind and its principles of action. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Genesis chapter 1, verse 27. To be victorious in the warfare, we are called to, let's see, to be victorious in the warfare, we are called to against the powers of darkness. We must understand the battlefield, the human mind, where the struggle centers. We are made in the image of God. Our powers are like his in kind, though not in magnitude. They enable us to reason with him, Isaiah 1:18 and Ezekiel 18:25, test his truth, 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 verse 21, understand his will, distinguish between right and wrong, and sympathize with and be like him in character. In short, they enable us to know, love, and obey him, and to live in our measure the same moral life he lives. The various powers of the mind, like those of the natural universe, sustain important and unchanging relationships to each other, which we need to understand. Satan aims to manipulate our minds falsely and wickedly, both toward God and man. Therefore, we must survey the battlefield, learn where the enemy will position his forces, how he will defend against our weapons, construct his schemes, and manage his surprises. We need to know our own strongholds, the munition of the rocks, the hiding place from the wind, and the covert from the tempest, where we can stand firm against the foe. We must know the field before we fight. Reporters can study and describe it after the battle. We ask for the reader's special attention here. The mind's powers. There are three fundamental powers of the mind: a knowing power, a feeling power, and an acting power. We know, we feel, we act. We have thought, emotion, and volition. These powers are the intellect, the sensibility, and the will. Our intellect is a power to know a variety of things with different degrees and kinds of knowledge. Some things we know positively and beyond doubt, like the axioms in mathematics. Similarly, we know moral axioms. Every event must have a cause. Right and wrong are moral opposites. The virtue ought to be loved and vice hated. The intellect sees these truths directly without reasoning and knows them with certainty that cannot be diminished. Okay, I think it's still working. Other things we know through external evidence with varying degrees of emotional faculty, we experience a wide range of feelings. Our sensibility can include heaven or the turmoil of hell. Love, joy, purity, and associated graces bless us here, while envy, jealousy, revenge, and kindred passions ignite their flames. The will is our being's executive department. With remarkable capacity, we cannot will light into existence as God did when he did. Let there be light. But we can direct it through lenses and cameras to capture images and through telescopes to reveal countless worlds beyond the reach of the naked eye. We cannot will matter into existence, but we can shape it as we please. We can level mountains, fill valleys, and transfer wilderness into fertile fields. We cannot create the forces of the natural world, but we can harness them to our chariots and make them do our bidding. We cannot create the distinction between good and evil, right and wrong, but we can choose to embrace the one and reject the other. We cannot alter the will of God in the least, but we can will our own subordination to it and thus be at one with the Most High. Some laws of the mind. 1. The intellect is under the law of necessity. When certain conditions are met, knowing is unavoidable. If your open eye is upturned to the sun, you can't help knowing it shines. Our role as gaining knowledge lies in the will's power to direct the intellect's attention. We can use that however we please. The will's agency over the intellect has limits. The knowledge of good and evil is in the mind independently of the will. The will cannot exclude fundamental truths. With our senses open and the world teeming with thought, much knowledge enters the intellect involuntarily as well as through voluntary application. All knowledge, whether voluntary or involuntarily, constitutes material that the will is free to use rightly or wrongly. God holds us responsible for using it as the moral law prescribes. Number 2, the same law of necessity applies to the sensibility. It has no power of choice. If you put your hand in a flame, the sensation of pain is inevitable. Emotions correspond to the objects before the mind. Emotions may differ among individuals due to constitutional differences in this power and bodily senses. Nevertheless, all control we have over sensibility compulsion. The will is not free in the sense that you can avoid choosing altogether to reject the other. However, between the two, the will is endowed with the basis of our responsibility. We know we have this freedom as an essential attribute of our being. The thief who stole your purse knew he could freely leave it alone. He was as conscious of this freedom as he was of his existence and wickedness of stealing. The freedom of the will, as defined, is known by the highest evidence, certified by our own consciousness. We debate with ourselves whether to do this or that because we know we can choose. We hold ourselves and others responsible on this basis. There ought to be no difference in opinion on this question among men, and there is none in practice. If someone argues that we cannot make choices without any motives at all, I agree. However, motives. The principles of right and wrong are inherent in our reason. Choices of the seemingly contradictory theories of freedom and necessity both hold true in how they actually complement each other. 4. Free will operates according to a principle where one major decision leads to many smaller, supporting decisions. For instance, when we decide to build a house, this overarching choice requires a multitude of minor decisions to bring it to completion. These can include selecting the design, choosing materials, hiring workers, and managing construction. Each of these smaller decisions is necessary to fulfill the initial larger goal of building the house. A tree has large branches, more numerous limbs, and even more leaves. The tree's life comes from the roots, diffuses through, and works in all parts. When our purpose aligns with what our Savior requires, it brings God's grace and blessing into our lives. This stay true to it, every aspect of your life will be pleasing to God. Number 5, the mind forms and retains purposes based on motives or reasons. These are of two general classes, good and evil, right and wrong. We are made to distinguish between them. All reasons in favor of right choice and conduct and against wrong serve as motives to form and keep the right governing choice. The reasons God and angels have for righteousness, we have too. The universe is full of weighty motives for the right and none for a selfish and sinful life. Number 6, the mind, with all its laws and powers, is designed to seek what is right and true. Reason and conscience align with God. Romans chapter 2:15 says, "They show that the requirements of the law are written on their hearts, their consciences also bearing witness, and their thoughts sometimes accusing them and at other times even defending them." The soul's deepest cry is, "Who will show us any good?" Psalm chapter 4, verse 6 reflects this longing. Many are asking, "Who will bring us prosperity? Let the light of your face shine on us, Lord." It refuses to be satisfied until it finds the good that God provides in Himself. Psalm chapter 16:11 states, "You make known to me the path of life. You will fill me with joy in your presence, with eternal pleasures at your right hand." As believers, our minds are naturally inclined to approve truth and justice and to reject falsehood and wrong. Philippians 4:8 urges us, "Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things." We are made to appreciate and be moved by displays of order, beauty, and benevolence. And Romans 1:20 confirms this. "For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, His eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been, so that people are without excuse. Therefore, it is not the fault of our we turn away from God and destroy our souls." Proverbs 19:3 warns, "A person's own folly leads to their ruin, yet their heart rages against the Lord." Number 7, the mind's powers are closely interconnected, so misusing one affects them all. Just as when one member of the body suffers, all members suffer with it. Perverting the conscience, polluting the sensibility, or distorting the judgment causes immense harm to both mind and character. Conclusion: the great challenge of life is how to align our will and thus all our mental powers with God's will and maintain this alignment against all opposition from Satan and the world. Can it be done? Yes, it can be done. Or else the gospel is a lie and Paul's experience is a delusion. To achieve this transformation, God actively works in us and with us. We need to learn the way and understand how to utilize the gospel as the very power and wisdom of God for this purpose. By doing so, the result will be certain. The gospel is designed to empower and guide us, and if we embrace its teachings and allow God to work within us, we will undoubtedly see the promised results in our lives. And that concludes chapter 4. Next time, we will pick up in chapter 5. Until then, keep your eyes on Jesus, brothers and sisters, and your nose in the book, which is the Word of God. And let us embed the Word of God upon the tablets of our hearts, and not be a hearer only, but be a doer of the Word, so we will not sin against God or be deceived. Bye-bye.